Fight Night Picks is brought to you by Strikeforce Energy. Head on over to the website, strikeforceenergy.com. If you enjoy the flavor of freedom, the company's veteran-owned and everything's made in America. They've got great apparel. You can turn any 16.9-ounce beverage into an energy drink. There's no sugar, no calories, no stirring, or no shaking required. They also have a line of different products as well as Strikeforce coffee. So if I head into my cart, I've got a 4-count sample pack. I've got a 20-ounce coffee mug. And if I head into that checkout, use the promo code FNP, click to apply, and you're going to save 20% off any order. That's FNP at strikeforceenergy.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, recorded in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada, it's time for the Fight Night Picks podcast with your host, Craig
And Matt.
Allen.
Oh boy, and with that, Matt, we are live once again. Looking forward to another great show today. And Matt, we have another card. We have another UFC card coming at us on Saturday. I mean, listen, there's a lot going on in the sport. We had a card last Saturday, UFC 249. We had a card on Wednesday, UFC Fight Night 171, with Glover Teixeira beating the absolute snot and teeth out of Anthony Smith. And then this weekend, of course, we have Alistair Overeem taking on Walt. I mean, Matt, I've thrown it out there quite a bit. I've been looking for fight of the night. I've been looking for letter grades on the card. If you had to give this card a letter grade, just right off the top of your head to start the show, what would you give it and why?
So I would probably only give it about a B minus maybe. It's not the best card top to bottom, just off name value, especially coming off like a card like 249. You pretty much knew everyone on that card and their whole fight library. So this is definitely sort of a step down from that, of course, but I think there are some really compelling matchups in this. I know Angela Hill, she's going to break Cowboy Cerrone's record for shortest amount of time to have 7 fights in the UFC, which is crazy. She's competed 7 times in 419 days, I believe. That's insane. Edson Barboza making his 145 debut. I mean, there's a lot of fun storylines going into this card.
So, I mean, this show, Fight Night Picks, Kicks, normally what we do, we have this show a half hour before every card. I've got stuff going on tomorrow. You've got stuff going on tomorrow. So we're going to do it on the Friday night beforehand. But if this is the first time you've joined us, really appreciate it. And I'm going to run down through what we're going to do in these types of shows. So, kicking it off with Fight of the Night. Then we're going to get into storylines. Then we're going to get into top prospect on the card. Then title implications. Then your Fight Night Picks, where you talk about whatever it is, your burning questions in MMA. We're going to try and get to the chat as much as we can. Bahodir and Kevin, we really appreciate it that you're joining us here tonight on a Friday night, getting ready for a really big card of UFC action. I mean, we have a lot to talk about today. So, Matt, in terms of, your fight of the night, what are we talking about and what is your fight of the night here?
So right now, there's currently sort of a challenge going, not even a challenge. The UFC, Dana White and Halle Berry have partnered in this charity event, and the winner of sort of this raffle is going to be able to sit in on a matchmakers meeting and also have dinner with Halle Berry. But they kind of already did half that job for me. Edson Barboza versus Dan Ige, if I could make any non-title fight in the UFC, that would probably be up there. I don't know about you. I enjoy violence in my MMA fights, and that's one that I can guarantee is going to deliver on those things, especially with Edson moving down in weight. We don't really know how his power and his speed are going to translate.
Were you surprised by what he looked like on the scale?
I don't know if there's been a person with more muscle on their body to weigh 145 pounds for a total of 30 minutes. And that's the thing, too. By the time he rehydrates tomorrow, Edson Barboza was pretty big for lightweight. Like, he's a big dude. So the size discrepancy that there is going to be between him and Dan Ige is going to be absurd. And I'm a big Dan Ige fan, but I think this is way too much too soon. I think it's going to be a phenomenal fight, though, for as long as it lasts.
I mean, Dan Ige is on a really, really good roll. And you could say, his last win was a split, but still, I mean, when you're fighting a guy like Mirsad Bektic, that's a great win to have in your back pocket. Now you're taking on Edson Barboza, a huge name. And if Dan Ige gets a win there, maybe you're not in title contention, but you're starting to get into that conversation at the top of a really packed division at 145. I mean, who do you think would be next? I know there were rumors, maybe Barboza and Josh Emmett. Do you think Dan Ige gets a Josh Emmett with a win here?
I think it's interesting. Here's the thing. Here's the good news if you're a featherweight moving up the ranks. There's not a lack of talent to fight because that division, pretty much anyone in the top 10 could be champion any other day. That's just how stacked of a division it is. I'd like to see maybe the winner of this get Calvin Kattar, just a name that sort of came up not that long ago that's still in the headlines. I think that's a really fun one, especially and this is unfortunate for Dane Ige, but if he beats Edson Barboza, he should get kind of the rub from Barboza. You know, he has good wins, but he doesn't have a win over a huge name like Edson Barboza just yet. So if he does get a big win, let's say he finishes Edson, then maybe a Calvin Kattar is next. You know, someone up the ranks moving a little bit. I like the Shane Burgos fight too. For some reason, those two guys are always sort of interlocked in my head because their fight, Calvin Kattar and Shane Burgos. But I think Burgos and Ige would be a phenomenal fight. If Edson wins, I think he could be a little bit more selective with his opponent because he's going to have a little bit more just say with the UFC and their matchmaking. I think if he wins this, it's going to put him sort of past Josh Emmett because Josh Emmett, for as good as he is, he's not really a guy who you think of when you talk about that elite top 5 talent. So I think Edson is going to probably try to shoot for a guy like, you know, a Yair Rodriguez, a Korean Zombie, someone along those lines.
So if we bring up the top 5 in the featherweight division, of course, you got Volkanovski as your champ. Then you have Max Holloway, Brian Ortega, Zabit, Korean Zombie, Yair Rodriguez, Frankie Edgar still ranked at 6th. Kattar, Stevens, Emmett. So, yeah, I mean, if you're a guy like Barboza, I would think shooting for a Rodriguez, TKZ, or Zabit, that would make a lot of sense. I mean, those are really fun fights, high-octane fights, and especially if you put them as a 3-round fight. I don't think I'd want to see those as a 5-rounder, so 3-rounder all action.
I would love to see Edson fight either Zabit or Yair. I would like to see all 3 of those guys fight each other and maybe in a Pride-style tournament. I know it's never going to happen, but that'd be very cool. I think you're right, though, with the 3-round thing. Unless he fights Zabit. If they want Zabit's marquee win to be over Edson Barboza, you have to make that a 5-round fight. Because no one wants to see Zabit in a title fight until he kind of joins that 5-round club. So I think that would be the fight to make. That'd be phenomenal.
So if we get back into the chat, Luke, really appreciate you tuning in, saying Edson looks so good. Andy also with us, and the Gale Travel saying, and I'm going to say it, this is the way we end every show, let's get into it. Yeah, you got it. So if I'm going to talk about my fight of the night, probably would have been Giga Chikadze and Mike Davis, but unfortunately we don't get that. We get Irwin Rivera taking on Giga Chikadze. Should be an interesting one. I mean, Irwin Rivera, if I can talk about it for just a second, Titan FC bantamweight champ. He's fought at featherweight in the past. I mean, he's 9-4 total, but he's got a tidy little win streak. And he's been able to finish a lot of fights lately. So it should at least be a good matchup. There's no odds on fightodds.io. There's no odds on Best Fight Odds or Bodog that I've checked. So that one, I know, like, really, really short notice. I don't even know. I'd have to look it up. I didn't have a chance. But Irwin Rivera, I couldn't find actual, weigh-in results just yet. Because, that's how short notice of it is. PayPal My Money says, are you twins? No, I'll take your PayPal money, I guess, but no, not twins. Sure. Not twins. Age difference. But if I had to talk about a fight of the night for me, you're either Song Yadong, Marlon Vera, or your curtain jerker of a prelim between Matt Brown and Miguel Baeza. That's probably the one I'm going to go with now. I know I was asked on Instagram in the DMs if who I was going to take in that fight. I'm still sticking with Baeza. I know by the end of these shows, normally, Matt, what we'll do is we offer up our picks, and we will do that today. But Matt Brown never has a boring fight unless he loses very quickly or wins very quickly. You're going to have a fight of the night type contender. And Miguel Baeza is the type of guy that will bring a fight like that to him. I know it was likened in the DMs to the fight between Hunter Azure and Brian Kelleher that we had on Wednesday, where you have a guy who has a lot of experience versus a guy who's undefeated as a prospect. And I agree with that to an extent. I just think Baeza is going to be able to get over the hump and get a win there.
Oh, yeah. Just Matt Brown is so dangerous for any prospect. That's the problem. Because even in his older age, and we haven't seen him fight in a little while. I know the Ben Saunders fight was somewhat recent, but he hasn't been able to string together, a consistent schedule for a little while now. But anytime Matt Brown fights, you're going to tune in and want to watch it. And he just has such a good style. So I couldn't agree more. Yeah, Matt Brown's going to put on a show. I think he's going to win.
That should be a really good one. So that's, getting into fight of the night. Stefano's saying Song versus Vera is going to happen. Unless I'm missing something, I hope nothing's happened. I'll check.
The rumor was that's why, or not even rumor, but it was Uriah Faber weighed in case Song Yadong had visa issues for some reason. So hopefully the fight still goes through.
Yeah, from what I saw, Song Yadong weighed in, and there was nobody that missed weight that I saw either. So it should be a good card coming along, and a lot of really good fights. So let us know in the comments what your fight of the night is. We'll move into storylines. I'm going to start this one off. There's some pretty big storylines, or maybe some that are under the radar on this card. I know our two are going to be, pretty big ones. But for me, the big storyline has to be the return of Walt Harris. That's a big one there. I mean, Walt Harris has been out for an extended period of time. The last time we saw him was last summer, and it's events that are out of his control. I mean, he was scheduled to take on Alistair Overeem at the end of last year. His stepdaughter goes missing, and then all the events that ensue and the craziness that happens. Then the fight gets booked again and again and again, and now we finally get it this weekend. Both guys weighing in, looking fresh too. Walt Harris weighed in at 264.5. Overeem weighing less, which, I mean, Overeem, you think it in your mind's eye, he's such a big guy that he would weigh in, right at the limit, but he didn't. But just the fact that Walt Harris is back, ESPN kind of rallying around him. If I'm not mistaken, it was either an E60 or an ESC thing that they had on Walt Harris. But just the fact that he's going to come back into the cage this soon after fighting, to defend his honor, but really just everything that surrounds him. If he's able to get a win, a huge story there. So for me, that's the big storyline. There's a lot of other ones we can pepper in. I think that's probably the biggest one from this week.
That's definitely the biggest storyline. I have two somewhat smaller ones, and I kind of mentioned at the start of the show. Angela Hill breaking Cowboy Cerrone's record for basically the most active anyone's ever been for this time period. So yeah, she's about to have her 7th fight in a 419-day span. So just over a year, she's having her 7th fight, which is wild. So basically, she's just been in and out of a training camp constantly, just one after another. And it has shown, because you can tell throughout this part of her career, especially the last 4 fights, I'd say, she's definitely picked up her work rate, and she keeps on adding new parts to her game constantly. I know I've been really critical of Angela Hill in the past, but I couldn't say any better things about her than I can right now. I mean, her strikings look really good. She's got great cardio. She's not as hittable as she once was, and she really is starting to show massive improvements from fight to fight. And I think Claudia Gadelha is the perfect woman to sort of see what Angela Hill's ceiling is, because if you can beat Claudia, I know she's been very inconsistent as of late in her career, at least, with the weird Marcos win, the weird the weird Carlos Barboza fight. Like, she's had quite a few ups and downs lately, but I think Angela Hill can get it done, especially the way she's looked as of late. I think that's a huge storyline. And the other one, of course, Edson Barboza making 145. Didn't even think it was possible. I thought it was very similar to like a TJ moving down to 125 or a Jose Aldo moving down to 135. And maybe it is. We don't really know how his performance is going to be affected by such an extreme weight cut. But if you look that good on the scale, I mean, Jose Aldo looked terrible on the scale, and he was still able to recover quite well and have a pretty good fight, although he did lose. Although TJ Dillashaw looked terrible and performed very poorly too. So hopefully Edson does get the most out of that weight cut and is able to perform quite well come Saturday.
So I pulled it up because it was a question we were talking about it before in terms of storylines. It looks like the fight between Song Yadong and Marlon Vera is on. So just looking at Uriah Faber's Instagram saying, putting in the A-team, Song Yadong ready to shine, the damage ready for the grind, had about 12 hours to get my juices flowing, visualization, da-da-da-da-da. But yeah, looks like that fight's on. And a lot of things in the comments here, Gadelha Hill as a possible fight of the night. I think that's a really good one as your co-main event. I'm glad that it gets a shine over. And there's a lot of good fights on this card. I'm glad that it's actually that far up. And we'll get into that a little bit later on, but I think that that's a really good opportunity for both of them. Joe Manfredi saying, I'm not sure how I feel about Courtney Casey going up a weight class, although Barella is very inconsistent. The odds on the distance are the shortest on the night. Ige won't be able to walk on Sunday, Stefano was saying, so that's kind of crazy. Midwest Side Hustles with the super chat, giving us $1.99. You guys are the best. Good luck tomorrow. Cheers. We appreciate
Thank you.
That is
Very
the first one in the show, in the history of the show. You can see the smile from Matt. This is awesome. I mean, listen, we've been doing this since 2018. It's crazy how this channel's blown up. And like I pinch myself every day just thinking about where we are. So I want to thank everybody, Midwest Side Hustles. You're helping out our side hustle, so we really do appreciate you. The Gale Travels is bringing up a really good point up further, saying, don't ignore Elkin's birthday fight narrative. People have thrown out weird names, weird numbers out here in terms of like somebody going 15-7 on 15-7. Like there's been some weird coincidences with the numbers. But I got to say, Darren Elkins fighting on his birthday against Nate Landwehr. That's a pick where I might change it later on. So we'll see that one in your Fight Night picks. But again, lots of storylines and Midwest Side Hustles just pumping the storylines there with the super chat. So we appreciate you there. Matt, we'll get into Top Prospect. We've already talked about it and some of the bigger fights that are on this card. And typically the way that this show works, I explained it when I did question mark kicks on my own on Wednesday night. Unfortunately, you couldn't make it, but we're both here. So we're talking about top prospects. On a pay-per-view card, this show changes from fight night to pay-per-view card, because in the pay-per-view cards, there's usually like one glaring top prospect and there's only one. For storylines, there's a lot. For fight of the night, it could vary because you've got some names that a lot of people might not recognize. And for title implications, it's usually like set in stone. These guys or these gals are fighting, and there's definite title implications, like Francis Ngannou, Jairzinho Rozenstruik on UFC 249. We talked about it for title implications on the last card. Was it Anthony Smith, maybe, if he got a win? Maybe. He did not win. He lost teeth and gave him to the referee, Jason Herzog.
Hard to watch.
But for top prospect, Matt, there's Justin Safford matching it. I ride with the Fight Night boys. The super chat is blowing up. It's blowing up. So we really do appreciate you. Thanks for going there, everybody. But for top prospect, Matt, on this card, who are you going with?
So if they have a ranking next to their name, I normally don't like to use them. But Song Yadong, I know in his last performance against Cody Stamen, a lot of people were down on him, myself included. Pardon?
You're taking mine. What are you doing?
Oh, no, don't worry. That's why I'm not going to use him. I'm just going to discredit it slightly. I'm just saying, he's so much better than most of the other prospects because he already does have that ranking next to his name. Now, although I don't think this guy's going to beat Matt Brown, I do think Miguel Baeza has the highest ceiling of any of the other prospects on this card. I think Matt Brown's a really hard guy to draw in your first fight, but let's say you do get over that hump. There's no easy fights from then on out. We kind of talked about this with Alexander Hernandez, how beating Beneil Dariush so fast might have been the worst thing to ever happen to him, because when you beat a guy of that caliber, there's never an easy night after that, because everyone knows who you are from that moment immediately on. If you beat a guy like Matt Brown, I know he's not in the prime of his career, not even close to it, to be honest, but he's one of those things where if you beat a guy like him, you're only going to be fighting somewhat big names from there on out. So I think if Baeza can get that win, maybe he can fight a Carlos Condit next, maybe, just other guys who might be a little bit past their prime. Just try to do that kind of legend killer sort of route, and then hopefully he can make it up to top 15 through that.
I think that's a great pick there. Justin Safford hitting up the super chat. Then Luke Feldstead hits the super chat and says, let's buy these guys dinner. So keep it up. We really do appreciate you. And the next time we're watching the fights in person, we're gonna have to give the shout outs again, but we'll show you what we're eating for dinner. I'm gonna be camping tomorrow night, so catching up on the fights on Sunday, and hopefully, listen, if they call me to do the radio stuff, I'll do it, and I'll catch up with those fights. But yeah, doing the radio stuff's been kind of crazy too. So Calvin Dalton saying, you guys are the best, we appreciate you. Arno Lorenz, hopefully I pronounced your name properly, saying the Overeem fight odds are great. He's my pick. Who's with me? I'm still with you. And we'll get into it later. I'm still going with the Reem to get the win. Kicks Good saying Anders or Jocko. We'll get into that if you stick around. But that's a really good fight. I think that's one that's flying under the radar. Calvin Dalton also saying Brown by KO. I don't know. Medicated Gamer saying Matt Brown and Ed Herman, two guys a young prospect shouldn't fight. You're definitely right. Remember the fight? I hate to bring it up. You're going to roll your eyes. Ed Herman, John Vellante. When John Vellante beat him, Ed Herman won that fight.
He did.
So, yeah, that's just the way I feel. Jake Cahoon saying, I think Overeem on this one. He's upset about his last fight ending the way it did. And watch Matt Brown's last fight. Yeah. Matt
did
Brown's
well against Ben Saunders.
He did win, and I mean, yeah, but Ben Saunders. So,
exactly.
Top prospect. You had a really good pick. I'm still going Song Yadong. You could say what you said about the fact that his last fight, yeah, I mean, he's taking on Cody Stamen, who's not a prospect. He did really well. Jordan McMillan, $5 in the super chat. Keep killing it, you two. Yes! We appreciate you. You guys are keeping us going. So, Jordan, appreciate you. Listen, if I could do a good DJ Khaled impression, I would, but I can't. So, I don't have anything there. But top prospect, Song Yadong. And that fight against Marlon Vera, the fact that we get that fight, that's awesome. I think that fight's way better than Uriah Faber stepping in and fighting either. Like, you wouldn't see Uriah Faber fighting Song Yadong. But if Faber fought Vera, it'd be interesting.
Okay, but here's the problem with that. And I was thinking about this all day.
Faber'd
I
be
do
a lot
like
bigger.
Uriah Faber. When Cheeto Vera fought Brad Pickett, it was like Brad Pickett's farewell fight. And at that stage, not to say Uriah Faber is not slightly more competitive than Brad Pickett was, but I don't want to see Cheeto Vera just keep on knocking out a bunch of legends. Like, eventually he has to fight somebody who's kind of up in the rankings. And I think this Song Yadong fight is a perfect measuring stick for both guys because it's almost guaranteed to knock out the distance.
Like, speaking of Brad Pickett and Uriah Faber and guys like that, what if, and this is crazy, what if Thomas Almeida came back at 45 and fought Marlon Vera?
That'd be awesome. But here's the problem. What's Thomas Almeida doing?
I don't know. I'd love to see Thomas Almeida. All right, so we move on from from top prospect into title implications. There's not a lot of fights on this card with title implications. I don't even think your main event with Overeem and Harris, I don't think there's title implications in that fight. The only one that I have, and I think you'll agree, is a co-main event. It's one of those fights where everybody in the comments, making the picks on the video, everybody's kind of split between Gadelha and Hill. And I understand it. Like, when I was predicting that fight or trying to think about it, and it's been a while too. Like, I talked about it on Wednesday. We made picks for this card a long time ago.
We did.
JB in the super chat saying lobster extra butter please, picks are great. JB in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada, last weekend at the Superstore, $8.99 a pound on lobster.
Ooh.
It was insane. I mean, I know, again, we're in terrible global times. Lobster was on sale and it was cheap here. And it's lobster season as well. It is
At least
lobster
one
season. So I got to say that. The boats are out in the water. Fishing season starts tomorrow. Yep. I think it's tomorrow. And then the fisheries really ramping up into full swing. So if you're a fisherman, fisherwoman.
Fish Night Picks with Matt and Craig Allen.
Let's call it that. But we really do appreciate you. Jordan, JB, Luke, Justin, and Midwest Side Hustles. You guys keeping us going. So appreciate that. So we keep going. And Thomas Hewitt saying, Gadelha going to sub Hill. I don't know. Richie Les saying crab's better than lobster. Richie, no.
I disagree, Richie.
Big lobster guys here.
Here's the weird thing. Claudia at her best, I think, is better than Angela Hill at her best. Because Claudia on the ground, we saw the Karolina Kowalkiewicz fight, and I know I'm going back quite a ways for that, because I keep on thinking that fight was like last year. There's UFC 212. That was a while ago.
Midwest Side Hustles. Another $1.99. I know you guys are going to blow up someday. Fingers crossed, you're keeping us going. Now continue.
So I think Claudia, if she fights to her full potential, should beat Angela Hill. It's just we haven't seen full potential Claudia in such a long time. It kind of mirrors my pick for the main event too. I think Overeem does most things better than Walt Harris. It's just we haven't seen Overeem at his best in a while now, and I think it's going to be similar for the co-main event.
So, yeah, I mean, what do you make out of this co-main event? Like, I know we're going to get into our picks, and when it was just me, I kind of just ran through them really quick. And, oh, by the way, we had a great weekend. 9-2, 8-3. You beat me on Wednesday, but you went 500, which is not good. I mean, you went 5-5. I went 4-6. It was bad. You had the 3 dogs in a row winning in the last 3 fights, which if you're hanging up or hanging out, and
with Michael Jordan
and making picks, you had a good run. I had a good run on those 3. I'll be honest. I made a last ditch kind of let's see what happens and ended up winning, but. For title implications, I think you're right. And I mean, talking about Gadelha and Hill, I think it's a great fight. I said it's awesome that it's co-main event. But honestly, are there real title implications on that fight?
No.
Because I brought up the rankings before we started, and I'm looking through. I really think your title implications there would have to be if and when Jessica Andrade fights Rose Namajunas. That's it. And I mean, a lot of people are talking about it, the fact that Tatiana Suarez, I know back and forth in the comments under that video was someone talking about, well, where is Tatiana Suarez? As recently as a month ago, she was talking with James Lynch in the Score in MMA and saying that she's still rehabbing that injury. But when you're rehabbing an injury like that, it's a little bit different from some of these comebacks that we've seen, like the Verdums, even Chase Sherman making his return to the UFC. It's a bad injury. And I mean, I personally, if I was her manager or somebody involved in her camp, because you never really know what you're going to get with some of these coaches too, right? Like, did they have their fighters' best interests at hand, or did they want to just get paid from a fight camp? But you look at that division, Andrade at 1, Namajunas 2, Suarez 3, Jędrzejczyk 4, Nina Ansarov's still at 5, which inactivity, I don't think should be there for long. Gadelha 6, Esparza 7, and so on and so forth. What fight makes sense for Tatiana Suarez if she comes back?
Joanna is the only one that makes sense because Tatiana still needs a big name win.
That's
She's
true.
beaten good fighters. The answer off fight, I think, kind of tells you who would win between Suarez and Joanna. Unfortunately, though, Suarez is great for about a round and a half at just grabbing that takedown and causing a lot of damage. But Nina Ranceroff showed if you're good enough defensively off of your back, Tatiana Suarez will gas enough to the point that you can at least defend the takedowns. And not that Suarez is a bad striker, but when you're dealing with people like Ranceroff and of course like Joanna, I mean, Joanna's striking compared to Tatiana Suarez's striking is absurd. And if she could defend the takedown, she'd probably just light her up on the feet. But that's really the only fight that makes sense for her at this point. It's just like you said, with a neck injury and being a wrestler, you never really know how much it's going to affect them.
Yeah, you kind of went squirrely there on me.
Breaks their hand. It's not that big of a deal. You can rehab that and be fine.
Now I've got you back.
Huh?
We kind of went squirrely for a second, but we've got you back.
Oh, and just Tatiana Suarez, a neck injury for a wrestler is much more serious than like a hand injury for a striker. And it's something that you always have to worry about for that fighter's whole career. That's what's always going to kind of worry me about Suarez because it seems like she's had this crazy dominant performance. And it's kind of the Cain Velasquez effect where she's almost so dominant that the way that you have to train to be that dominant is wearing your body out. And it's unfortunate to see, but it's kind of been the case with Tatiana Suarez. And yeah, I can't think of even another fight on this card that has anything to do with title implications.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like Don'Tale Mayes and Rodrigo Nascimento probably has title implications. So let's get in the chat for a little bit. Right after Midwest Side Hustles, also saying that's the goal. These guys helped me a lot with my DraftKings lineup Saturday, Wednesday. Just giving back a tiny bit of what they helped me haul in. Well, we appreciate
Well, thank you.
Cameron McCann saying, Walt about to run through Overeem without angry dad strength. Well, unfortunately, yeah. I mean, we'll have to see what happens. That's such an interesting fight. It really is.
Okay, I want to get your opinion on this. So, Walt Harris is going to be very emotional going into this fight, and that can be a really good thing or the worst thing ever because he can gas out. And I think his cardio management is really going to be the key to this fight because the longer the fight goes, I know Overeem got knocked out in the last 5 seconds of his last fight, but the longer it goes is playing into Overeem's strength.
Which is weird because in age, they're close. And this is something, if you're following along here and you're in the comments and you're in the comments under the videos, I know it's something we've been asked a lot. It's something I couldn't add in after the fact, but age. I'm going to start putting age in there with records and countries of origin and all that stuff.
Overeem's 40 on Sunday.
Yeah, we'll start throwing that stuff in there as well. But in terms of that fight, yeah, like older guys, but the older guy who has way more experience you would favor in cardio.
Oh, yeah, 100%. But here's the problem. I favor him in cardio. I probably favor him in striking and grappling, too. He can't take a punch at all at this stage in his career. And it's unfortunate to say because he is such a skilled martial artist. And the argument's always, well, he's heavyweight if anyone gets hit by those shots. But it's not like Jairzinho would hit him with a strike that would put down a horse. Like when Francis Ngannou knocked out Overeem, that would knock out any person walking the face of the earth. He's been dropped and rocked by some strikes, though, that wouldn't hurt most other people in the heavyweight division. And I think that's going to be his downfall Saturday.
So this is one of the things that's really getting talked about in the comments now. Everybody's kind of going after it. Medicated Gamer kind of started it saying, Justin Gaethje made me the money. I was so wrong about Cruz, though. And Thomas Hewitt saying Gadelha also knocked JJ down twice. True, but that was a while ago, so take that with a grain of salt, though. Arno Lorenz really getting us into this one, saying, P.S. a bit off topic. What do you think Tony should do now? Fight Connor? I mean, what does he do?
He has to fight either. I would think he has to fight Dustin Poirier because that's the only fight that makes sense outside of Conor McGregor. And you can't, like, I don't think you can say, can this guy fight Conor anymore? Because Conor's just going to fight whoever he wants to. So I don't really think he's really even an option at this point. I think Poirier and Ferguson are the only guys at the top of the division who haven't fought each other yet. And one more win for both those guys. They're both coming off big title losses. One more win would get them right back into the top of the division anyways. And it would be a great springboard for both guys. And let's be honest, that would be a fight of the year candidate too.
Here's the thing, and this is what a lot of people saying. So Medicated Gamer saying this, Midwest Side Hustle saying this. Do you think he takes a year off? The thing, I hear you there, and I hear you as well. I don't think he does. I mean, orbital injuries, yeah, you got to take some time off. But at the same time, he's not young. And he's in a division where, unless you're, what is it, Massaranduba? Is that his nickname? Francisco Trinaldo?
Francisco Trinaldo.
It's tough to take a lot of time off like that.
It is, but here's the thing. Tony Ferguson hasn't fought more than twice in a year in a very long time. So although he is 37 and he does get in some damaging fights, he's not this crazy active fighter, and at least in this stage of his career. So I think if he did take a year off, really recuperate from his injuries, not to say change camps, but I may have said this on Twitter the other day, Tony Ferguson's corner was awful in that fight. I went back and rewatched it, and it's crazy to see the parallels between what Justin Gaethje's corner was able to get across during the fight and what Tony Ferguson's corner was. And I know Eddie Bravo gets a lot of heat for just being a crazy person, but after every single round in that fight, he kept on saying to Tony, beautiful boxing, perfect, beautiful boxing. If that's what you
But
saw
he's not
after
a
the
striking
second...
coach.
No, exactly. And if that's what you saw after the second round of that fight, you shouldn't be a coach in MMA anymore. Like, it's so obvious.
Devil's advocate. This is a guy that's been interim champion, 12-fight win streak.
Oh,
I know
yeah.
how the fight went. He got beat up pretty bad. And you can point to all the perfect things that Trevor Whitman said. Take 10% off your shots. Watch your gas tank. This and that. I don't know what he's going to do. I don't know Tony Ferguson. This is a guy that's been there and done that. He's probably made so much money. He's got his own little gym. He can start, training. He could end up being the next Antonio McKee. Really, he could. I mean, he could.
Yeah.
Like, he has the opportunity. Small hole in the wall gym, team body shop. So you never know what he does. But yeah. That's a really interesting thing to ask.
I hope he doesn't retire. I know that's a weird thing to say, and this is kind of a point where a guy like him would retire. But I think Tony Ferguson has more to offer the sport. Like, I think Khabib and Tony can still happen. Yes, some of the shine will be taken off that fight, but I do think it's a matchup. Because let's say him and Poirier do fight, and he's able to go out there and darce choke Dustin Poirier or put him down with a big shot. Like, people are going to want to see the Khabib-Tony fight still.
JB brings up a really good point. Just talking about, kind of the times that we're in right now and making 10-bet parlays. Yeah, there's some good opportunities out there. You're not wrong.
Yeah.
Like, we bring these odds up and this and that. We'll get into it now. Now we're in your Fight Night picks, just so Matt knows because you can't see my screen.
Oh, no,
but there's some good opportunities. I don't have a name. Says Song Yadong versus Marlon Vera is my pick for Fight of the Night. I think that's a great pick. That's pretty well mine, really. I mean, Ige Barboza is a great one. Brown and Baeza to be in the feature prelim spot, especially on a Saturday night, a big card like this. And when's our next card? Because it's not really the 23rd, and is it the 30th? Is it in Vegas, Florida? Who knows?
Just say, who even knows where it is?
Yeah, that's it. And even the fights that we have, the odds are really weird. Like
Yeah,
Tyron Woodley's an
odds.
underdog to Gilbert Burns in 2020. Yeah, it's weird. So your Fight Night picks. Let us know in the comments what you're thinking. Looking at this card top to bottom. So if we start from where we're at, Don'Tale Mayes, Rodrigo Nascimento. Some people are hard on Rodrigo Nascimento's physique. He weighed in pretty heavy. Don'Tale Mayes weighed in not light, but like 240-ish. Don'Tale Mayes physically looks great.
He does.
His boxing's good. Cyril Gane is a tough guy. Really tough guy to try and fight in your debut.
Very.
I think he could be a champion. If the stars align, he could be a champion. But in this fight against Nascimento, it's one of those, flip a coin, see what you think.
I think Don'Tale Mayes has got. I just think he's more technical, and the fact that you can't always take physique and fitness into it. But I think Mayes should get it done. Like you said, his boxing's quite good. And when you are the lighter guy, you'd have to favor his cardio. I'm a big believer in there shouldn't be main event heavyweight fights that aren't for the title, just because that weight class, let's be honest, how many great 5-round heavyweight fights have you seen that don't involve like a Mark Hunt in them? Because Mark Hunt, Bigfoot Silva is the argument against it. So I think this is a good fight. I don't know what the ceiling for either guy is, but I do think Don'Tale Mayes
Travis Brown, Derek Lewis, we were there.
We were, but that got ended in the second round, so it's not like we had to sit through 3 rounds of them being very, very tired.
All right, so you're going with Don'Tale Mayes. I know the odds are prior. It's one of those ones where you do tape study and it doesn't really mean a whole lot. I'll stick with Nascimento just because if he's able to outlast Mayes, which Mayes could very well finish him in the first or second round. This goes 3 rounds. If this even gets to the second half, like if you were doing if the over-under is 1.5, go with an over and then go Nascimento, there you go. There's your one. You guys asking these questions in the chat, there's your one. Nascimento by submission, if you want to pick it that way. Because, I mean, look at what Cyril Gane was able to do, but Cyril Gane's creme de la creme. Francais, coming out of France. Next fight, Courtney Casey taking on Mara Romero Barella, a fight where a lot of people, again, they might stay away from it. I would stay away from it, personally.
I would too.
Flyweight, unless you know, like, 100% 100% you're going for it, then don't. And Mara Romero Barella, she can grapple. If she can get, like we saw it in her last fight, she got into some sticky situations where, like, she looked like she could really capitalize on the fight, and it just didn't happen for her. Courtney Casey is a decent striker. She's long, and especially even at 25, she'll be a long fighter. I know height, reach wise, everything's pretty close, but once they get into the cage, she's long. I'm still going Casey, but this is one I'd stay away from.
This is going to win my Michelle Watterson Carlos Baeza award of the night. I don't think this fight's going to be very entertaining. I think it's just going to be who can outpoint the other one is the real thing.
Carlos Baeza coming through.
I think Mara Romero Barella will get it done, though. I just think the size discrepancy is going to play a factor, but both of them kind of do the same thing. So it's going to come down to who can outpoint the other one, not even who can outlast the other one. I think Mara Barella's got it, but I'm not confident in that pick whatsoever.
Yeah, you got a little bit squirrely there, but I mean, you're going with Mara Romero Barella. I'm still going with Casey. In the comments, Damien asking us our pick for that. So there you go. Medicated Gamer saying Overeem 4th round finish, easy money. R2R times Mac Hayes production. Good stuff, guys. Nate Landwehr all day. That's our next fight, so let's get into it. Darren Elkins and Nate Landwehr. And I know UFC.com and, my friend on the internet, I guess, on Twitter, E. Spencer Kite, who's been with Sporting News and Fansided, and now he's with UFC.com. He's been there for quite a while. Does a lot of those pieces like that. But Darren Elkins making his way back into the cage. So you got a guy that's lost some fights, and you got a guy that's winning some fights until he lost his last one in Nate Landwehr in his UFC debut. It's tough to tell what you're going to get. It really is. It's one of those ones where you probably want to fade it. You don't even want to touch this one, because when Darren Elkins is at his best, he's beating guys like Michael Johnson. You could say, well, Craig, Thiago Moises did that. And yeah, you could, but Michael Johnson had a pretty good first round. But if you look at this fight, what do you make of it? I mean, Nate Landwehr, his striking's all right. His grappling's pretty good. His wrestling's pretty good. Darren Elkins, at his best, beats him in every aspect. It's just like, what Darren Elkins do you get?
Well, Darren Elkins, no matter what, is going to have great cardio, and he's just going to be a frustrating fighter to deal with. He kind of fights like a smaller Tim Kennedy. That's kind of what he reminds me of. Sort of fights like a wet blanket. He just always wants to stay on you. He's going to keep the volume high. He's going to keep the control really high. Nate Landwehr hasn't showed me anything that he can deal with those things. Maybe this is the fight that's kind of his coming out party, but in that Herbert Burns fight, he had no success. I know he took down Herbert for a fraction of a second. Herbert got right back up to his feet, knocked him out. And when you're getting knocked out by a guy who is not known for his knockout power whatsoever, very much a grappler, and Darren Elkins, not to say he's a big power puncher or anything, but he's known as a guy who can at least out-volume you. I could see him tiring out Nate Landwehr. I think Nate Landwehr can get off to a great start, but I think he's going to burn himself out a little quick, and I think Darren Elkins will slowly take over as the fight progresses.
I don't know about that. I mean, I'm still hot to trot with the Nate Landwehr pick. I think he's going to be able to get it done and rebound off of a tough loss like that. But if you're of camp, Darren Elkins, man, I mean, you've got your eye Faber there. You get Song Yadong there. You've got a majority of your camp. It's not like you're going in there with like one guy. So yeah, you're pretty good that way. But yeah, I'm still going with Landwehr. Then you got Giga Chikadze taking on the debuting fighter who used to fight for Combate. He's your champ with Titan FC at bantamweight, Erwin Rivera. Again, no odds on this fight yet. I would expect Giga Chikadze to be a huge favorite. And I picked Giga Chikadze to beat Mike Davis like a wild man, even though Mike Davis had a more or less a free ride scholarship to go to Tiger Muay Thai, and his striking's phenomenal. I still went with, the man who got it done in Glory Kickboxing at 6-3, but still did it. And I had Chikadze. I've still got Chikadze against Rivera. But props for Rivera. This is the best way to get into it. Just like you saw Ike Villanueva against Chase Sherman, you get Erwin Rivera getting a shot.
They always give you a second chance if you kind of do them a favor on short notice. I thought Mike Davis would knock out Chikadze. I'm not going to lie. I thought that was going to be a pretty one-sided fight. Chikadze's going to win this, though. I mean, he's hard to beat with a full training camp, much less on a day's notice. So it's going to be a tough one.
And you saw that, too. Like, in his last fight, it was a short notice for Jamal Emmers. It was a split, but, again, Jamal Emmers is a bigger guy at 55, or at 45.
And he had more than 24-hour notice.
Eric Dorfman saying odds are plus 285 on Rivera. I didn't find them before we started, so I appreciate you throwing that one out there. But yeah, I wouldn't go with
That's
it.
about right.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to pick Chikadze and throw it in a parlay. Kevin Holland taking on Anthony Hernandez. This fight has taken on a life of its own on the internet. I have seen plenty of people on Facebook, of all places, saying Anthony Hernandez, and I've seen a 50-50 split in the comments. Again, in terms of the odds, they're really close still. This is basically pick'em odds on most sites on this fight. I know I was watching on Twitter, of all places, and Yanni the Greek really laying it out pretty well, saying that, like, you're talking wet blanket, and this is something that people have said. Anthony Hernandez just outlast Kevin Holland, push the pace, get a win. And
Yep.
on the opposite side of the coin where I am, Kevin Holland, establish range, get your distance, keep him away, and get a win. And I still believe
Kevin
that.
Holland's interesting. He can keep range, but he doesn't have power to keep you at bay if you really want to get on the inside. So I think Anthony Hernandez has a good enough chin to eat at least a few shots from Kevin Holland, make his way on the inside, and that's pretty much my prediction. Just really outlast Kevin Holland. Kevin Holland's the weirdest fighter I've ever seen because he can look amazing a minute at a time, and you just hope that he can string together enough of those minutes to win the fight. But at his worst, he just kind of accepts damage and doesn't throw anything. It's a very odd thing for a fighter like him to have. So Kevin Holland might be able to get out with a win, but I do think he's going to lose this one.
And again, it's interesting. Like, if you're looking at all these fights, your biggest favorite probably now is Chikadze over a short notice Erwin Rivera. But apart from that, they're pretty much all pick'ems. So you're right, and I know it's been put out there. Let's see who it was by. I can't find. Oh, Jack Gray. Let's hear your 10-fight parlay. You want to get wild. We'll see what happens. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see, what happens in that fight. Your next one is your feature prelim, Matt Brown, Miguel Baeza. I believe we're on opposite sides of this one too. We've been different on all the picks, and hopefully everybody that's tuning in, and I tested it for this week. I threw it out there when our end screens pop up at the end of the video, our picks pop up. And I have me on one side, Matt on the other. I know it's helped our viewers, tuning in from different countries. There's been a lot of people from Portugal, from Spain, from Mexico as well. I know, those are two different languages, Portuguese and Spanish. But hopefully, I can help everybody out there with that, because I took one semester on Espanol, and I mean, I aced a beginner Spanish class, but that means absolutely nothing. I don't speak Spanish. So moving on to, again, that feature prelim, Matt Brown, Miguel Baeza. Does Matt Brown again turn back the clock, or is it like the Azure Kelleher situation where Baeza has a good first round and Kelleher finishes him in the second? You know what I mean. What do you make of this one?
I think Matt Brown's going to win. Again, the Ed Herman comparison was good. There's just some old guys you don't want prospects to fight, and Matt Brown's one of them. Because he wins fights he should lose, and he loses fights he should win. He doesn't make a lot of sense in that regard. But this is a fight that just screams he's going to win by finish. I think Matt Brown is going to come out like an absolute demon and beat Miguel Baeza. I think he's going to get off to a tough start. I think Baeza is going to have a speed advantage. But I think as the fight wears on, that speed advantage is slowly going to get taken away. And then eventually Matt Brown's going to be able to find the openings. The elbows, the tie clinch, really everything that Matt Brown throws on the feet has bad intentions behind it. And it's just a matter of time until one of those big shots lands.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right there, but I do think Baeza is the guy that hasn't lost a fight in quite some time. He just continues to rip through everyone. And yeah, his last fight wasn't a finish, but still, Baeza looks like the real deal, just like Hunter Azure did. But I'm still going to die on that sword and go with Miguel Baeza. Caramel Thunder, great nickname. Next one, again, a fight of the night. Sung Yadong taking on Marlon Vera, kicking off the main card. Really exciting one. What do you make of it? I mean, I think, again, we were split on this one when we originally picked it, but who are you going with here?
So I think every second past the starting one favors Marlon Vera. The longer this fight goes, Marlon Vera should win it. I mean, most of his finishes come in that third round. He's a slow starter, but he has seemed to sort of fix that, at least as of late. Not really fix it, but he's just a lot smarter defensively in that first round. Because it used to be eats a lot of shots and then do well in the second and third round. Now it's sort of download my opponent's game plan and then start to do well later on. And Sung Yadong is a guy who, especially very early on in a fight, he is so dangerous. It is absurd. He's got really good boxing, throws those really nice straight punches with a lot of power behind them. But Marlon Vera on the ground is going to have such a big advantage. I know Cody Staman's a better wrestler than either one of these guys, but once Stamen was able to get Song Yadong down to the ground, he kind of dominated him. And Marlon Vera, we know how good his jiu-jitsu is. He fights very similar to like an Emmanuel Sanchez. If he's able to get this fight on the ground for any period of time, I expect him to get a finish win.
Yeah, going down through the comments again, Loaded Beats saying, don't know if you already answered but on Barboza's weight cut. Look pretty shredded. Medicated Gamer, really good point here, saying it's not safe to pick a team alpha male fighter with no Justin Buchholz as coach. Trust me, I trained in Sacramento. NorCal represent. It's a tough fight to predict, as Kicks Good is saying. I'm still going with Song Yadong. I really do think this guy's a real article. And I went back through his record. Like, he lose to Alexei Popolnikov, who's a great Russian guy with a good record. And then I'm pretty sure he lost a fight right before he came into the UFC to a guy who was like 0-1 or 0-2. And you look at his total record and you think, like I said it in the video, but guys that come from WLF wars in China, what are you going to get? Like, it's a mixed bag. You could get somebody who's great. You could get somebody that you don't know. But I really do think Song Yadong, like the real thing, he can do it in a lot of different aspects. Really fast starter. I think he's going to be able to do it against a slow starter in Marlon Vera. It's a perfect storm for him.
If Song Yadong didn't train a team alpha male, I would love to see the winner of this fight Cody Garbrandt. I don't care who wins, especially if Vera wins. He was calling for that fight, and he deserves a big name, especially if he can beat a guy like Song Yadong.
Or bring Thomas Almeida into this.
I think I'd love to see Thomas Almeida fight anybody, but we just don't know where he is anymore, which is unfortunate. It's going to be a wicked fight. Both guys have very high ceilings, though, and that's what's the most exciting thing about this fight.
We'll have to see what happens. And a lot of people picking Chito Vera in this one, but I'm sticking with Song Yadong. I really do think he's going to be able to get the win. Eric Anders taking on Krzysztof Jotko is an interesting one. And it's something I've been asked about on Instagram a couple of times, what I'm thinking about this one. I'm still going with Eric Anders. This is a guy that's fought some top-level names and performed well. I know, and I'm still, again, you find the hill to die on. I still think he beat Lyoto Machida. I really do. Like, that was a huge fight, and I still think he won it. Thiago Santos was way too, like, short notice, up a weight class against a super fighter at 85, let alone 205, and he got beat bad. But still, he's had good performances since then. I just think
Roundtree was bad.
I still think he's going to be able to get it done. I mean, Krzysztof Jotko in his last fight fought Marc-Andre Barriault, who can brawl and who can press the pace. Eric Anders does everything Barriault does, only better.
Oh, I agree 100%. Eric Anders only struggles with guys who have more power than he does. And a lot of guys don't have as much power as he does. But you look at fights like the Thiago Santos fight, like the Khalil Roundtree fight, he really struggles when someone has that advantage over him. Luckily for him, though, Krzysztof Jotko is not a powerful puncher by any means, very much a volume guy. So I think Eric Anders will be able to cut through a lot of that and eventually stop him.
And as Tommaso Marx says, the winner of Song Vera could fight Jimmy Rivera. Yeah, that's a good fight too. Thomas Almeida, Jimmy Rivera, Cody Garbrandt. Let's see what happens. Nate Porter saying I like Jotko. I like Krzysztof Jotko as a fighter. I'm just not picking him here. But I
think he could outpoint Eric Anders. It really depends on what Eric Anders is.
Yeah, just like Elias Theodorou. So
exactly. He would have to fight a very similar fight to Elias.
Yeah, we'll have to see what happens there. So the next fight, Edson Barboza, Dan Ige, as we have a comment, YouTube Boss Haas has a fight decoded. Always get that bomb, aka Dynamite. Yeah. Okay, I don't know what you could make of this fight. I mean, there's a lot of people picking Dan Ige in the comments. There's a lot of people picking Dan Ige. I just don't see it for him in this one.
No, Edson only loses to wrestlers. That's it. If you strike with Edson Barboza, you're going to get lit up. And yes, Justin Gaethje knocked him out. Like, some guys have had success in the stand-up against Edson Barboza, but when you really think about it, you have to be the cream of the crop to get a win over him. And not to say Dan Ige won't be there one day. I do think Dan Ige has a really high ceiling. He's going to main event Fight Nights. He's going to have a really good, successful career. Edson Barboza at this stage, though, I know he's had some losses, but he knocks pretty much everyone out who's not in the top 10 of featherweight. And I think Dan Ige just kind of had a bad draw of the cards with this one. I think it's a bad matchup for him.
I mean, again, Barboza's been taking on the best of the best at lightweight. I think this is more a Jose Aldo moves to 35, even though he lost that fight. I do think that Barboza's going to win this. He's so much bigger than Dan Ige. Dan Ige's a good wrestler. Dan Ige's a good striker. He beat Mirsad Bektic by split decision, which is good. And Mirsad Bektic is pretty much, at this point, a pure striker. They might even still have him as prospect watch on SureDog because he was a prospect forever.
But he's not Edson
But
Barboza.
that's the thing. Edson Barboza is such a good pure striker. And even the conversations going on in the chat. Hard, you look at the fight against Dan Hooker, and then you look at the fight here against Ige, and Barboza's all over this one. He's a minus 135, 140 favorite. Barboza all day. Those odds are great. Like,
they are. Oh,
he only loses to the best fighters at 55. Now he moves to 45, looks shred city.
Yeah.
I don't see him losing this fight.
No, especially, and here's the good news for him at 145. It's full of strikers. Not a lot of really heavy takedown artists at that weight class. So he could rocket up the rankings fairly fast. Like, if he wins tomorrow, and then let's say he gets a win over Calvin Kattar, they're probably going to have him fighting for a title by the end of next year if he is able to stay active.
Your co-main event, Claudia Gadelha, Angela Hill. Angela Hill setting records for 7 fights in a short amount of time. Claudia Gadelha, mixed bag. But to me, Claudia Gadelha, even to beat a decent striker, wrestle them a couple of times, get them to the mat, impose your game plan. Oh, by the way, you're training with Mark Henry, some of the best wrestle boxers out there. I mean, not the Cruzes, but still. Lance Palmer, Frankie Edgar did some things. I mean, one guy won $2 million in 2 years. So I think that Claudia Gadelha wins this fight. Angela Hill's been great, but level of competition too. You have to consider that. Hannah Cyphers and then Loma Lookboonmee. What if Loma Lookboonmee stood in here and fought Claudia Gadelha? It wouldn't be close. Angela Hill's a really good fighter. Her Muay Thai and her striking are great. But I see Gadelha winning this fight. It's probably going to be closer than it should be, but Gadelha wins this fight.
I'm never picking Claudia ever in a fight, just so everyone knows. I'm going to pick Angela Hill. I think this fight is going to go very similar to the Nina Ansaroff fight. I think Claudia will have success, but I think she's going to burn herself out looking for the finish early, like she always does. And if she is getting lit up by Angela Hill on the feet, she's going to start to panic and rush forward, because that's what she always does. She'll rush forward, throw a big flurry, go for a takedown, all these really high volume, high amplitude takedowns. Angela Hill, all she has to do is not get stopped in that first round. Because one thing I can guarantee you, Angela Hill has way better cardio than Claudia. And that's not even close. Because Angela Hill throws a very high volume of strikes, and she can do that for 15 minutes, no problem whatsoever. Claudia throws a very low volume of strikes and struggles to get through like a good 8 minutes in a fight. So the longer the fight goes, I think it's going to favor Angela Hill. I can see her picking up a decision win. I think it should be an entertaining fight, though.
Yeah, should be a really good one. Like I said, I'm going to stick with Gadelha. The co-main events on these cards are weird. Hernandez should have been co-main Wednesday. Yeah, I mean, could have been. Yeah, they have been weird. It's weird because you have this big announcement that you're going to have all these awesome cards, and then the fight night cards are just kind of And we'll promote them a little bit. We'll see what happens. Main event, Alistair Overeem, Walt Harris. I don't think I've really switched any of my picks actually today. I don't think I have. Leaning a little bit more Elkins than I was when we made our picks. But Overeem and Walt Harris still. I think Overeem gets it done. When Walt Harris has faced, even a little bit of adversity, it hasn't worked out for him. I know you could say Fabrizio Verdum, that was on super, super short notice.
Like 6 hours notice.
But what do you make of that one there?
So I think our fight that we can draw quite a bit from is the Alexei Oleinik fight for Walt Harris. Because Oleinik, I know he's been stopped, but even in the Verdum fight, he can take quite a bit of punishment before he goes down. And the fact that Walt Harris threw one punch and just completely flatlined him was really impressive, I thought. And it was against a guy who has a huge experience edge over him and who has quite a few advantages over him. Like grappling, really, his striking is probably a little bit better than Walt Harris, because Walt Harris is a very basic fighter. He just has absurd athleticism for the size of him. And I think it's going to be enough to get it done against Overeem. I think he is just going to have to hit him with one of those crazy rushes like he hit Sergey Spivak with. And I know the names that we're sort of mentioning with Walt Harris, they're not at the same level of, beating Sergey Spivak better than losing to Curtis Blades. Maybe not, just because there's such a big discrepancy between those two. But Walt Harris, we've never seen fight an upper echelon guy. The problem is I don't know if Alistair Overeem is an upper echelon guy anymore. We've just seen him get stopped so many times that I don't think I can pick him anymore, just because that chin is such a question mark. If you're fighting a big athletic guy like Walt Harris, he only needs one punch, and I think he'll be able to find it somewhat early against Overeem. If the fight goes past the second round, though, Overeem's going to dominate. It's not even going to be close.
if the fight gets past if the over-under was 0.5, you hammer the Overeem under.
Yeah, exactly.
But if it goes past that, and you can live bet, which I know Bodog's been doing lately, you hammer Walt Harris as that fight goes on. I know everybody knows that. You look at the result in Overeem's last fight against Rosenstrike, but still, yeah, hammer that one. I'm still going Overeem. I mean, you look at some of the bigger guys that he's fought. You look at some of the less polished guys, the guys with question marks. Sergey Pavlovich, 100%. You go Overeem. And that's kind of the case here. I mean, great big heavyweight, guy that tips the scales at 264.5. You're still going Overeem on this one.
See, the only problem is, who is the last guy who Overeem fought who doesn't have good technique, has really good power, and people didn't know who he was before he fought Overeem? Francis Ngannou. And I know Walt Harris isn't. I'm going to get torn apart. He's not close to Francis Ngannou right now, but at the time they're pretty similar. Big, powerful guys, and that's about it. And I think that's all you need to beat Alistair Overeem at this point in his career.
Yeah, so I mean, if I were throwing something together, and you're talking decent odds, and people have asked me this one, if I'm going to make some quick picks, and I keep kind of circling here, Eric Anders as an underdog is a great one. That's one that I would go with. Whether you get him at plus 125, plus 130, that's a good one. Barboza minus 140, minus 135. Hammer that one. I'd pass on the co-main. Alistair Overeem as an underdog is a good one. I had Giga Chikadze as an underdog against Mike Davis, and the line actually went more in favor of Davis. I'm still feeling Chikadze. I know that fight, again, not happening. You have Chikadze taking on Erwin Rivera, and it's, now he's a huge favorite. Are there any that really jump out to you that you'd hammer?
Not really. I agree 100%. Eric Anders being an underdog against a guy who's probably not going to have the power edge or be able to stop him, I think that's a good one. And Barboza should be about a minus 270, I would say. So the fact that the odds are somewhat close in that fight, I think you should hammer it, like you said. So no, those are the two best picks on this card, because there's just so many question marks on this whole card.
So we turned, like we typically do with Fight Night Picks, we turned a 15 to 20 minute show into an hour, and we really appreciate everybody for tuning in. Midwest Side Hustles, Justin Safford, Luke Feldstad, Jordan McMillan, JB saying lobster extra butter, please. Picks are great. And Midwest Side Hustles again. We really appreciate you. Everybody in the comments. I mean, these shows, the meat and potato shows and contrary to popular belief, there's no Adderall for our picks. We just get super amped up and just rattle that stuff off. And I don't want to, pump myself up, but it's kind of like, what was the movie with Dustin Hoffman? Waffner. It's kind of like Rain Man and Beautiful Mind mixed together. That's kind of how we work. So it's a litof weird, but that's kind of how we're able to do this. But no, all in all, these are the best shows. These ones, and then some of the other stuff that we do, the Fight Night Pick Selects, the early stoppages, the podcast, those are the best. As J.U.A. Rose says, you guys rock. You have to say that. But we really do appreciate it. So everybody for tuning in. We're having a blast. We really appreciate everybody. I mean, you're growing the channel, and it's the cat's meow, if I can throw out another cliche. Matt, you have any parting words?
No, it's so nice to have live sports on TV. And of course we love MMA, so we care about it a little bit extra, but it's just nice to have something to talk about again.
Yeah,
really
it's true. So thanks a lot for hanging out with us. Enjoy the fights tomorrow night. I'll be on social media if I have service, because again, I'm doing the whole camping thing. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at Craig Allen FNP, at Matt Allen FNP. And a question that was thrown out there just before we go. If you want us to do the fight companions, we've talked about it. If you really want it to happen, as Richie Les says, Crab's still number one. No, it's not. We'll do them, because it's something that we used to do when we had like 250, 300 subscribers. But we'd consider it. So if you want that, we'll look into it. Really appreciate it. Enjoy the fight Saturday night. And we will catch you again probably next week.
Let's do it.
Ladies and gentlemen, recorded in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada, it's time for the Fight Night Picks podcast with your host, Craig
and Matt.